So what is this bill all about, and what does it mean for Canadians?
So there's two things. So first of all, understand it's part of a wider process. So in 2017, Health Canada came out and said, we're going to change how we regulate natural products. And they call this the self-care framework. And there's about 7 or 8 planks. And this is just one of the planks. But what this plank is basically increasing new penalties so that they can enforce the other planks. So for those of you that have been involved in the natural health product industry for quite some time, you'll remember in 2008, the Bill C-51 fight. Well, this is Bill C-51. So Bill C-51 brings in new powers for Health Canada and then increases penalties from $5,000 per offense to $5 million per day of any violation. And it's not just a company if you're incorporated, it's everyone, from the directors to the employees that in any way participate in the violation. An obvious example is your traditional Chinese practitioners, your herbalists, your naturopathic doctors, your homeopathic doctors. They all use natural health products. They don't use chemical drugs. So, if you basically, things that are non-chemical therapeutic products tend to be fit within the natural health product camp. It's this whole self-care framework that's being implemented. Another one is cost recovery. So they've published in the Canada Gazette that they want to impose the fees that they charge drug companies for site licensing and product licensing and the like upon the natural health product community. Now that in itself, and it's just one plank, that in itself is going to drive a large number of companies off the market, which then you lose their product lines, and then it's going to increase the prices for those that remain. But they're going to take these funds and create a new enforcement arm. And one of the things this new enforcement arm is going to do is go into the marketplace and look for health information and censor it. Now, we're not talking about fraudulent information. First of all, there's not that much of a problem out there, and we've got fraud protections from, in the Food and Drug Act and Criminal Code and our Telecommunications Act. But Health Canada hates the sharing of truthful health information about natural health products. Let me just give you an example. There's a company, truthful, that has a product, eMpower Plus, which is used to treat serious health conditions such as bipolar disorder. And, some psychiatrists, it's all they use. It's funny, at a trial, I had to subpoena Dr. Charles Popper, who is a psychiatrist who teaches at Harvard Medical School, and he just teaches doctors how to become psychiatrists. He basically said on the stand, if you got bipolar disorder, it's what I'm using eMpower Plus. Manage. And he said every single patient I would have to meet with weekly to counsel them not to commit suicide and manage the side effects from the drug cocktails. Well, once roughly half his patients chose eMpower Plus, he said it destroyed his practice because he's not meeting with those patients weekly. He's meeting with them every 3 to 6 months. Before this Bill C-47 passed, True Hope had those articles up on their website because they weren't afraid to share that truthful information because they were just facing a $5,000 per offense fine. But now they've taken those down because Health Canada, as soon as this bill was passed, said, you take this down or we're going after you. And they can't withstand $5 million a day fines. Right now, under the natural health product regulations, there's no limit to the type of conditions for which you can get Health Canada approval. They limit us to structure function claims, but they don't limit us to any area of health. But Health Canada said, no, when we fully implement this new regime, we are not going to be granting licenses for any condition for which you would seek the advice of a healthcare practitioner. But when you move into a licensing regime that will not allow a licensing for products that these healthcare practitioners are using, what's going to happen to the naturopathic doctors and the like when the products they rely on are gone? And what's going to happen to us when those products are gone? Because then the only drug approval pathway for you is this new drug approval process, and it's too onerous and expensive. Like in my lifetime, not a single natural health product has gone through it because it costs about $1 billion. It's a brave new world that we're entering, and then they're going to require the exact same standards of evidence as the chemical drugs. Like right now, you can use traditional use evidence to show efficacy, and in some traditions, like the traditional Chinese medicine, tradition, that evidence can go back like 2,000 or 3,000 years. I mean, there's a tremendous body of evidence.
I was just going to ask, when is C-47 due to take effect?
It actually passed third reading and received royal assent on June 22nd. So in the very next day, Health Canada sent emails out to every manufacturer and distributor and letting them know that this new structure is in place. I mean, they've been wanting this since 2008. They're just, like a little kid excited at, on Christmas morning. In 2008, there was the largest citizen rebellion in my lifetime against these provisions. And the Ministry of Health and Health Canada, they knew that Canadians didn't want this, and they sneak it into a budget bill, and no one has time to respond. Now that I know this, like, I challenge people, you read the Food and Drug Act and drug regulations, there's no duty for them to protect health. There's no duty for them to act in the public interest, which is quite fantastic. And our drug regulations have nothing to do with health. They're there to protect intellectual property rights, full stop. It's a criminal law act. The federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over health. There was a drug approval scientist, Dr. Shiv Chopra, who was a drug approval scientist at Health Canada for 30 years, and he became a whistleblower. And he forced the Senate to call him and 4 other drug approval scientists to talk about corruption in Health Canada. And one of them, Dr. Margaret Hayden, after her testimony at the Senate, did a CBC interview. And she explained, after you're a drug approval scientist at Health Canada for long enough, you actually come to recognize how they're going to get around your decision not to approve a drug. So, here we have a Health Canada scientist that's there to protect us, at least in their minds, recommending that a drug not be approved. And then how it works, as she explains, is the management above them, which are never doctors and scientists, will appoint an outside council of experts who will then approve the drug. And you don't know who votes for it or who doesn't. So there's no liability on that panel. And then that panel recommending the drug be approved, the management will approve it, and there's no liability on management because they're relying on these outside experts. I'd like everyone to go to the website. It's www.nhppa.org, and subscribe to our newsletter, because we're going to be putting out campaign after campaign after campaign, and that's how we're going to alert you. And then also join our social media channels if you're on social media, because we'll also be putting out alerts that way. We're kind of ramping up. We do now have a campaign that's ready, and it is on the site. We've made it really easy. Here's what you need to do. Here's how you educate yourself. So there is a long discussion paper, like it's probably 30 pages long, but that's necessary. There is a 2-pager that just very easy for you to understand. The discussion paper is just so that you've got the meat and potatoes, and it's got hyperlinks to source documents and that. So you can really do a deep dive. But, we actually let you know, well, here's what here's the topics you cover. Just pick them when you visit your MP. If you want to write your own letter, here are the topics. If you don't want to write your own letter, here's a pre-written letter with a space for you to write your own stuff in. If you don't even want to do that, well, then here's just the pre-written letter. We're trying to make it easy for you to take action, but we really need to create a citizen movement on this and push this back, or we're going to very quickly find ourselves in a situation where we're totally boxed into this chemical pharmaceutical model. And we don't have to be. This is an issue that we can get Parliament to be responsive on if you participate.